Around 2020, I was about to turn 38. And before everything happened with the pandemic, I remember having this thought of like, my birthday is coming up in April. So it was probably the end of 2019. And I was like, my birthday is coming up. I want to do something different because there's something about being in your 30s, you're getting closer to 40. And, my friends were having these all white parties and it was the grown and sexy and all this other stuff. And I just was like, I don't want to do that. That's kind of lame and boring to me. And I was like, I just want to get my friends together and we find a park and we just be kids again. Literally, that was a thought. I said, I just want people to come with their overalls. Maybe for lunch, we'll have little juice boxers and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We'll do three-legged races. And I said, I just want to have a day of play. That literally was what I said to myself as I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my 38th birthday. And then the pandemic happened. So my birthday is April 23rd. And so that was a month after everything closed down. But I did go to a park, but I went by myself. I went to a park, I found a tree, I sat in a tree, and I did some writing. And so that was that. I just thought it was one of those one and done kind of inspired thoughts, but didn't think anything of it. But then throughout the rest of that year, day of play would just drop in like day of play. It was just speed through my awareness. And I'm just like, okay, maybe this wasn't just about my birthday. Maybe there's something more to this. And then I ended up moving from downtown LA up to Ojai, which is about an hour and a half drive from LA.
So
And I had an
beautiful.
artist residency at Meditation Mount. We were still locked down. People weren't really going outside except for in their neighborhoods. And I was noticing and feeling that we were lacking connection. People wanted to be able to come together again, but because we were in this kind of uncertain time, didn't know how things were going to turn or what we were facing, something that was a first in our lifetime. So I had this idea like, I need to do a 1 day retreat, call it a day of play, make it available to women. And now that I'm up here at Meditation Mount and we have the outdoor space because everything had to be outside at that time, I was like, maybe we can make this happen. So I brought the idea to them. They loved it. We started promoting it. And that first day of play, I had about 20 women. And the main thing that I kept hearing was, this felt so good to connect. I missed the connections. People were inspired creatively. If there were things that people were procrastinating on, that experience kind of put them into gear to actually move on the things that they were kind of putting off to the side. And so then I said to myself, this is going to be an offering that I make available at the equinoxes and the solstices. So from winter 2020 through spring 2024, I was holding a day of play retreat. It was play, but we had workshops or play shops within the greater retreat where people were getting tools that would assist and support them in being able to continue to cultivate joy and a sense of passion and pleasure and even forgiveness and healing. And through working with and just experiencing women interacting with each other, kind of being in these play shops that allowed them to start to question their own beliefs and question how they were viewing themselves, I started to say to myself, healing can be light.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cycle Starters podcast. I'm your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson. And today I'm so excited to be sitting down again with the amazing DeAnna Lynette Carpenter. DeAnna is a healing artist and self-described priestess of play. Her work lives at the intersection of storytelling, sound, creativity, and soulful restoration. If you listen to our first conversation on the show, you already know how deeply she invites people back into joy as a real pathway to healing. In this second interview, we're going to go a level deeper. We're going to talk about what it looks like to choose play when life feels heavy, and how creativity becomes medicine in real time, and what it means to liberate ourselves from inherited burnout and survival mode. As always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and let yourself be nourished by this conversation. So before we dive into our dialogue today, I do have a favor to ask. If you are enjoying the content that we are creating here on the Cycle Starters podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps the algorithm get our content in front of more viewers. Also, if you would like to be in community with other cycle starters, definitely subscribe to my Substack. My publication there is called The Cycle Architect. And my highest tier membership that DeAnna is going to be teaching in this month, the month of July in 2026, is called the Cosmic Awakening Circle. So that's my highest tier membership. You can learn all about it on my website, heatherrebeccawilson.com, or you can just go to my Substack. I will put all of the links in the comments below. And then, of course, if you would like to receive your own galactic astrology reading, go to heatherrebeccawilson.com/readings to see the different offerings that I have there. And so, without further ado, let's welcome DeAnna back to the show.
I'm so grateful to be here with you. Thank you for the opportunity to come together again and to connect and to dive into all the things like we do. I'm very excited for this time with you today.
I'm excited too. So grateful for you and so grateful that you have put together a really, really cool workshop for the Cosmic Awakening Circle. Before we get into that, I want to give folks a refresher on your blood ancestry. So I know you shared more about it in that first conversation. Folks, definitely watch the first episode that we did together to get more information on that. But can you give us just a brief synopsis just to situate us for this conversation?
Yes. So I am the oldest of four. I was born in Michigan. As far as the lineage is, on my maternal side, my family comes from the South, Alabama and South Carolina. On my paternal side, that is the mystery. That is the part that I'm still discovering and even recovering and beginning to learn more about. But my father was born in New York, but then he was adopted by his aunt. So he moved to Detroit. I have not done any of the DNA tests to determine, or the ancestral tests to determine where my folks are from. But like I shared in the first interview, I've always had a resonance with Kenya, and I went to Kenya in 2022. And when I was there, I felt my grandmother. I felt my maternal grandmother very strongly while I was there. Just even some of the dishes that they were cooking, I remember her preparing dishes the same way. Certain features was very similar to my grandmother's. So I feel like when I do an ancestral test, it will likely be traced back to East Africa. And with my father, just sitting with it, it feels like it'll go through either Cuba and or probably Haiti or Haiti. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing all of that. So it's been, I think, maybe a year since you were on the show last. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
it
Okay.
was September if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was almost a year. Can you fill us in on what's been going on with you since you were last on the show? Like, give us an update. What's been happening in your world?
Yeah. Last year was the end of a 9-year cycle for all of us, with 2026 being the kickoff of the new 9-year cycle, with this year being a 1 year. And so when I did that first interview with you, I just had an abrupt ending to a relationship. I remember saying in that interview that there was still work for he and I to do, and the relationship that I had with my then spiritual teacher had come to an end, and there were some family dynamics that had shifted as well. So there was a lot of closures, a lot of abrupt endings, a lot of completions. And for the rest of last year, it was really about me becoming familiar with who, and really just creating the space and holding that space for who I was becoming now that this cycle was closing and coming to an end. Now that so many things were completing, the rest of that year, up and even until this moment now, has been me really sitting with who am I now? Something that I've noticed is that, and something that I've been saying is that, oh, there was something else that closed out in addition to those relationship patterns that closed out in this last 9-year cycle. And what I've come to realize is that the space where I create from has shifted. What I realized is that although I birthed a lot of beautiful things in this last 9 years and even the past 9-year cycle before this previous one, is that I was creating from a space of wounding. I was creating from a space of trauma and patterns and loops that, while I was creating, I didn't even know that that was factored into it. Now that I've closed out quite a bit of those patterns in loops and have cleared the imprint. Even my art and what I'm creating, I'm having to look at it like, where am I creating from now? What does this look like to create from a space of pure joy, pure love, and a sense of security within myself? I realized that although I've created many beautiful things, that I was creating it to fill a gap in a hole of longing for love, longing to be seen, longing for validation and approval. And so once I did the work on all those things, even though it kind of manifested through my relationships, it rippled through every area of my life. So what's happening now is I'm like, okay, who am I now? Where am I creating from now? What is resonating with me now? And just uncovering and rediscovering and creating from a space of wholeness in this level, because there's always this pattern of discovery, and then also, there's this growth process that we're always in while we're still in form and living in body and form. And I believe that the growth continues even after we leave this body. But now I'm just in this space of like, wow, what am I creating now? What am I giving birth to now? And is it really coming from love, and or am I creating it from a pattern? And so that's what's been happening in the last 8 months.
I mean, that's huge. And what a powerful awareness you've gained this year over the past 8 months. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I want to absolutely get people excited about this incredible workshop experience that you've created for the membership. But I told you before we got on the air today that I wanted to give you another mini galactic astrology reading before we
Yes.
talk about the workshop, because as I was prepping for this interview, I realized, oh my gosh, these things are connected. You are really living your chart with this offering. And so, having said that, I want to share with you what I found. And so, folks, I did give DeAnna like a broader reading, a mini galactic reading on the first episode. So, definitely check out that episode to learn more about her galactic soul connections, but I wanted to dive deeper into one specific placement because it's just speaking directly to this offering. Galactic astrology, for those of you who are new to this modality, adds an outer layer of fixed stars, nebulas, supercosmic points to the traditional tropical Western natal chart. And it allows us to look at how your soul has journeyed and evolved over eons of time. So we're looking at past lives that are not only on Earth, but we're looking at past lives that are off planet. And I felt called to become this quantum soul guidance galactic astrology practitioner in 2025. I felt the pull. I felt the call. I do think that humanity is going through a phase where more of our galactic roots, the true history of the planet, is coming into the light. The true history of humanity on this planet is being revealed. So, yeah, this is what I'm diving into now. And I love that DeAnna is so on board with all of this too. So thank you for being open to this and trusting me to look at your chart. So, all right, this is what I found for you. So we've already explored some of the broader galactic themes in the past, right? And today, like I said, I want to focus on one placement that feels incredibly aligned with the work that you're bringing into the world right now. So you have your moon in Taurus in the fifth house, conjunct the star Andromeda Tidwin. And in galactic astrology, the moon represents your emotional core. It speaks to what you need in order to feel safe and nourished and balanced and at home within yourself. That also you are responsible for giving to yourself, right? You don't outsource this to other people. And it also carries themes of ancestral inheritance, both the wounds that have been passed down, but also the gifts that have emerged through those experiences. And the Andromeda stars are often associated with liberation and freedom, expansion beyond limitation, and helping others break free from invisible cages. And so when I looked at this placement, what immediately comes through is that your soul is not meant to thrive under excessive restriction. Your emotional well being depends on freedom, not freedom in the sense of escaping responsibility, but this freedom to create, freedom to express, freedom to imagine, and freedom to feel alive. And because this moon of yours sits in the fifth house of play, creativity, pleasure, self expression, artistry, and the inner child, it suggests that play isn't just something you enjoy. Play is medicine for your soul. Play is how your spirit remembers itself. Play is how you come home to yourself. And I think that's one of the reasons your work feels so important right now. I think many people have been taught that joy is optional. They've been taught that creativity is a luxury and that play is something that we have to earn after all of the work is done. But your chart actually tells a different story. Your chart says that joy is necessary, play is necessary, and that they're not distractions from healing. They are pathways into healing. And when we look at the ancestral dimension of your moon placement, I can't help but wonder if part of your soul's work is helping to liberate generations of inherited seriousness, of inherited survival mode over responsibility and burnout, because many of our ancestors didn't have that luxury of play, right? They were surviving, they were enduring, they were carrying enormous emotional burdens. And the gift that they passed forward was that resilience. But your chart says that your generation may be here to add something else to that inheritance. You're adding joy, wonder, creative expression, and permission to be fully alive. And Andromeda reminds us that liberation often begins when we stop asking for permission to become ourselves. And the beautiful thing about your work is that you're not teaching play as entertainment. You're teaching play as remembrance. You're helping people reconnect to parts of themselves that existed before the burnout, before all of the expectations, and before the performance and the exhaustion. And because this moon of yours is in the sign of Taurus, there's something deeply embodied about it because Taurus is all about like sensuality and being in the body. This is an abstract joy. This is a joy that you can feel in your body, in your senses, in your laughter and your creativity, relationships, art, your presence. And so when I look at this placement, my dear, I see someone whose soul knows that healing doesn't always happen through digging deeper into the wound. Sometimes healing happens when we remember what it feels like to be free. Something healing happens when we create, when we dance, when we laugh, when we play. And I really feel like your chart suggests that this is one of your greatest gifts, right? To help people remember that truth, not because you've read about it, but because your soul came here carrying it. So, how is this landing? Like how are you feeling hearing all of this?
I am feeling so many things and I'm feeling seen and I'm feeling very excited and I'm feeling very much inspired by the connectiveness of life itself. Just when you think that I'm just doing this because I'm feeling it, I've always been one to follow what I feel. And that's pretty much how my entrance, if you will, into play in a more intentional way came about. I've always had a playful, joyful spirit all my life. I've always been one to love youth. I was a camp director for a couple years, and so always gravitated more so towards the young girls that were part of that camp experience, and also when we were working with the camp counselors and providing them with the training so that they could support the girls in the camp experience, like always this reminder to tap back into that inner child and through play and through your creativity and all the things. So when I'm listening to you, I'm reminded of the intentionality of this life that we get to live in. Nothing is ever happenstance. No matter how much we may think that it is, there's an intentionality to our life, to our blueprint, to the experiences that we have in this life, and even into the families that we are born into, right? Because I feel like there was a time in my life where I used to be like, why was I born into this family? Like I didn't quite get it. And then having moved through what I've moved through in life and seeing how that has inspired the offerings and the things that I bring forward, I don't think I would have been able to bring forward certain gifts had I not had the environments that I had growing up or as a young adult, et cetera, et cetera. So listening to you, I'm just, again, being reminded of how intentional this life is. Nothing is happenstance. And it makes me smile. And now I'm like, oh, I have to look up more into Andromeda and just become more familiar with that constellation. That's a constellation, right? Star system.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The
Hmm.
Andromeda constellation, also known to have the most beautiful beings in the universe coming from Andromeda. So that's another juicy tidbit about that frequency. So thank you for that feedback. It's so fun to look at people's galactic placements, and it is so rewarding when these things land, when they resonate. And so when I saw the workshop that you had prepared for the membership, my head exploded because I was like, this is in her chart. She's living her chart. This is amazing. And as you said, nothing is happenstance. These lives are intentional. We decide when we are on the other side, right? When we are a soul without this personality, we decide I'm going to come in at this time as this XYZ rising sign, right? Which will be the vehicle for my divine mission. And we pick all of these things in order to learn lessons for our soul's growth and evolution. And I love that you and I are on the same page about this. So your workshop is happening July 29th. This is at 5:30 PST, so that'll be 8:30 EST. And the workshop is called The Play Manifesto, Centering Joy and Creativity for Declarative Living and Expression. And so I think somebody who comes across this would want to know, how do you define declarative living? What is declarative living?
That's a great question. So, how do I define declarative living? What is declarative living? So, I had the wonderful opportunity of beginning to understand the difference between affirmations and declarations. And when you look at both words, it feels like, oh, it's the same, right? And I used to think that, but one of my spiritual teachers, one of the things that he would say is that affirmation is often the I am statements. It's like, I am bold, I am rich, I am wealthy, I am beautiful, I am powerful. The thing about affirmations, when it's said like that, it's easy for the mind to negate it, no matter how many times you say it to yourself. So, an example that he would often use is, I am rich. So, I am rich, I am rich, I am rich, I am rich. But then when you go check your bank account statement and you have a negative balance, your mind is going to automatically refute that affirmation, even though you're saying that to try to start to shift how your mind is thinking. That affirmation isn't strong enough to be able to silence, if you will, the chatter of the mind. Declarative or declarations is when you provide the evidence that your mind needs. So that way, whatever positive statement that you're saying, the mind isn't going to be able to easily debunk it. So, an example of that would be, instead of saying, I am rich, something that I often say is, just as nature is abundant and abounding and fertile and creative, so too am I fertile and creative and abundant. So it's almost like I'm giving my mind something to look at, which is nature, which is very abundant. It's very rich. It's very fertile. It's constantly multiplying itself. My mind can't debunk that. The declarative living to me is scientific because it's backed by evidence. So instead of just saying this statement of I am wealthy or I am this, which can be easily refuted when you attach it to what you're noticing in nature and to your cosmic nature. You know what I'm saying? Some people say I am creative, but they don't really believe that. But when you start to see that you're not separate from the whole, you realize that the aspects that you admire in nature, you have that too. So declarative living to me it takes affirmations and expands it, because now instead of seeing yourself as separate from the whole, you're being reminded that you're a part of the whole, and what exists in the whole also exists in you. So, one of the things that I've been working on is seeing myself as a universe, moving through life as a universe. I am a universe within the universe. All the qualities of the universe, whether it's chaotic, creative, organized, systematic, bountiful, plentiful, I have that within myself too. So, affirmative living, I think, is a beautiful way to begin. Declarative living, I feel like, is the next step from affirmative living, because we have to start somewhere. So you start with the affirmations to help you begin to even reshape how you may relate to yourself and how you see yourself. But then from there, it's like your affirmations have to grow legs. And so I feel like the declarative living is where you start to kind of build more of those legs by, again, eliminating the space or the distance that we often grew up with believing that we're separate from nature, separate from the cosmos. And really, more and more evidence is coming like, no, we are nature, we are the cosmos. And so, what is it like for me to act, to be, to have like a cosmos? To create like a universe, to be abundant as the rose bush, like I'm kind of not weird in this way, but I am, because I like to study. When I go for my walks, it's me looking at the systems within nature, within one rose bush, and realizing how abundant this one rose bush is, that it yields all these roses. And that's just one bush. So if a rose bush has that ability to yield so much beauty and inspires so many artists and poets and songwriters and even people who just love flowers, what does that say about me? So, declarative living to me is us beginning to realize that there is no separation with us and the whole. And it's about minimizing that space, that gap, so that we start to see ourselves higher and we begin to relate to ourselves higher and really begin to move throughout this experience of life from that space of knowing that there is more to me because of this. I think nature is the greatest teacher, and it has so much to reveal to us. And everything that we see in nature, we have within us. And so it's a different positioning, if you will. That's
I love
declarative living.
this. I love this. This is like a spiritual technology to bring us into more wholeness. I love that. It's very 5D, right?
Yeah.
Everything is alive and everything is connected. Yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm loving this. Thank you for putting this together. Well, so if people are interested in participating, how can they best prepare to get the most out of the workshop? What would you tell them?
The best way to prepare for this workshop, honestly, is to come with an open heart. This play shop, as I'm going to call it, this experience is really about discovery. And I desire for people who enrolls in this play shop, this experience, to leave feeling like they have a more heightened awareness of themselves through the medium of play. And play is really about discovery. Play is also about joy, it's about the creativity and the curiosity. But instead of those attributes and qualities being directed outward, it's about having that sort of inquiry for yourself. And so, one of the things that I've always been passionate about is, people being able to come into the fullness of who they are. But I can't help people if I'm not doing that type of discovery and examination and excavation within myself. And so one of the prerequisites for this play shop is just curiosity, openness, a willingness to be able to see yourself in a way that you may not have given yourself permission. I love that you brought that word in earlier prior to this play shop. I desire for people to have something tangible that they can leave the play shop with, so that they're not just feeling high and motivated and inspired during our time together, but then it eventually wanes after, the experience, but they have something that they can come back to that reminds them like, oh, okay, yes, this is this, and this is what helps me here, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, just come with be curious and openness. That's all that's required.
Perfect. I love it. Okay. So if you are interested in participating in the Play Manifesto, that is going to be happening on Wednesday, July 29th at 8:30 EST, 5:30 PST in the evening. I will put the link to the landing page in the show notes below. I'm so excited for this. Thank you again for putting this together. I know that my members are going to love it. And yeah, this is just awesome. Divinely organized for both of us to continue to collaborate together. So just so grateful for you. Well, what else is going on with you that you're excited about that you would like to share with our community? Any other projects happening?
Yeah. So as I shared earlier, this 9 months has really been about me just discovering where I am, where am I creating from? And so, wanting to share a little bit more about play because someone may be curious about, well, how did you even get into this? Around 2020, I was about to turn 38. And before everything happened with the pandemic and things shutting down, I remember having this thought of like, my birthday is coming up in April, so it was probably the end of 2019. And I was like, my birthday is coming up. I want to do something different because there's something about being in your 30s, you're getting closer to 40. And, my friends were having these all white parties and it was the grown and sexy and all this other stuff. And I just was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. That's kind of lame and boring, to me. And I was like, I just want to get my friends together and we find a park and we just be kids again. Literally, that was a thought. I said, I just want people to come with their overalls. Maybe for lunch, we'll have little juice boxers and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We'll do three-legged races. And I said, I just want to have a day of play. That was what I said to myself as I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my 38th birthday. And then the pandemic happened. So my birthday is April 23rd. And so that was a month after everything closed down. But I did go to a park, but I went by myself. I went to a park, I found a tree, I sat in a tree, and I did some writing. And so that was that. I just thought it was one of those one and done kind of inspired thoughts, but didn't think anything of it. But then throughout the rest of that year, day of play would just drop in like day of play. It was just speed through my awareness. And I'm just like, okay, maybe this wasn't just about my birthday. Maybe there's something more to this. And then I ended up moving from downtown LA up to Ojai, which is about an hour and a half drive from LA. And
Love Ojai.
I do too. And
So
I had an
beautiful.
artist residency at Meditation Mount. We were still locked down. People weren't really going outside except for in their neighborhoods. And I was noticing and feeling that we were lacking connection. People wanted to be able to come together again, but because we were in this kind of uncertain time, didn't know how things were going to turn or what we were facing something that was a first in our lifetime. So I had this idea like, I need to do a 1 day retreat, call it a day of play, make it available to women. And now that I'm up here at Meditation Mount and we have the outdoor space because everything had to be outside at that time, I was like, maybe we can make this happen. So I brought the idea to them. They loved it. We started promoting it. And that first day of play, I had about 20 women. And the main thing that I kept hearing was, this felt so good to connect. I missed the connection. So we had someone teaching belly dance. We had a station. One lady came and taught people how to put together different herbs and make their own oils. Someone else was doing hula hooping and relating that to the medicine wheel. And there was all these different little play shops within the greater retreat. And from that, there was just like, oh, I needed this. People were inspired creatively. If there were things that people were procrastinating on, that experience kind of put them into gear to actually move on the things that they were kind of putting off to the side. And so then I said to myself, this is going to be an offering that I make available at the equinoxes and the solstices. So from winter 2020 through spring 2024, I was holding a day of play retreat. It's usually 1 day. And then a couple years I did it overnight. And that's all it was. It was play, but we had workshops or play shops within the greater retreat where people were getting tools that would assist and support them in being able to continue to cultivate joy and a sense of passion and pleasure and even forgiveness and healing. And through working with and just experiencing women interacting with each other, kind of being in these play shops that allowed them to start to question their own beliefs and question how they were viewing themselves, I started to say to myself, healing can be light. Like you said earlier, sometimes we think that it has to be so hard, it has to be very heavy. And I began to realize healing can be light. So I do see play as a pathway to healing. And not that it replaces, if you will, the other types of healing that we do and the different methods of healing that we might experience, but it's a very viable way because, like you said earlier, it does bring you back to that original state. It brings you back to that state of wonder and curiosity. And sometimes when you're in a season, it's so easy to see that season as what is going to always be. But we forget that there was a time where we weren't in that season. And just like there was a time that we weren't in that season, there will be a time that this season too shall pass and we will be on the other side of it. And so I think what I love about play and creating spaces for people to play and be supported and encouraged to play. Because one thing I realize is that sometimes, especially with women, we haven't always given ourselves permission to play. I realized that through this experience and through recognizing play as a healing modality or another alternative or option to our healing, that the healing actually occurs quicker or faster. It occurs in a more accelerated way. And then as I began to really pay more attention, I realized that play and the energy or the frequency of play is very similar to the frequency and the energy of when we're manifesting, when we're intentionally calling things in, whether it's money, relationship, new opportunities, that same feeling of being relaxed and trust and allowing and not having your hands so tightly gripped. It's that same energy that we often hear is how you manifest things is also very present when you're playing. When you're playing, you're not thinking about it, you're not stressing about it, you're present. And it is in that sense of presence that we become available for things to be magnetized towards us. And so, if anything, play helps clear the slate energetically so that we can broadcast out what we desire, and then what we desire will get the signal and it'll respond much sooner. So there's a whole science to play that I've been studying, that I've been paying attention to. I'm reading about it, but thankfully through the retreats that I've offered, I've been able to witness it. And also there's been relationships that have been restored from women who've gone through this experience, who've done a day of play. There people have cured cancer because they started to shift energetically how they were relating to themselves and giving themselves permission to forgive themselves, all through the modality of play. So there's a lot there with play. I have so much to say about it because when you ask me what's coming, a book on play is coming. The
Awesome.
science of play, but the spirit of play too, because the two go hand in hand to me. One of the things that I'm observing is that we all used to play when we were children. We didn't think about it. We were encouraged to play. The problem is that as we grew up, our play didn't. Our play didn't grow up with us, and we replaced it with work. But what people forget is that work and play they're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. So often we hear people talk about, oh, I'm trying to maintain this work-life balance, this work-life balance. It really should be work-play balance. Saying work-life balance makes no sense because life entails the work and the play, but you can't balance work with life. You have to balance it with something, that is of equal measure, which is where work and play is. And so if you have a balanced work play balance, I feel like you'll have a more fulfilled life, which I think is the goal for a lot of people. So I've been really studying this, and this is what I'm excited to bring forward in the play manifesto. I also have shifted from a day of play to the heart of play because play is of the heart. And I have a retreat that is coming up September 19th through the 21st. It will be in Ojai. It's the Heart of Play. And it'll be a 2-day experience that I'm really looking forward to because this will be my first time marketing it as the Heart of Play because people are used to it being a day of play. So that's coming up. And I'm really just working on offering more play shops, if you will, virtually and or in person, where we can really start to see play not as this optional thing, but something that is really, really crucial and integral to us living a life that lights us up, that leaves us motivated and that makes us want to jump out of bed in the morning. So that's what I'm working on.
Beautiful. All right. Well, so if people want to learn more about you, about the retreat, if they want to work with you, where should they go to learn more?
Yes, so you can go to www.shewhobuilds.com. So SHEWHOBUILDS.com. You can also follow me on my Instagram at shewhobuilds, but primarily on my website underneath events. I'll also be sharing that the July 29th play shop is the most immediate thing coming up. And the September 19th through the 21st retreat in the next week or two. So that'll be coming and that'll be on my website as well as Instagram. But the best place to find out more about what's coming up and what I have in the pipeline is shewhobuilds.com.
Perfect. All right, my dear. All right. So I asked you this question at the end of our first conversation, but a lot of time has passed. And I find that when I ask this question again to return guests, the answer changes. So I want to see if the answer has changed for you. What are the new cycles that you are starting in this lifetime in your lineages?
I do remember this question. I
Hmm.
don't remember how I answered it though, which is a good thing. What are the new cycles that I am starting at this time in this lifetime? What I'm starting now with this new 9-year cycle, just starting here and then expanding out, is the deservingness, knowing, remembering that we are worthy and more than deserving of the goodness of life. I think that I know for myself, I thought I had to earn it. I thought it had to be hard. I thought it had to come through tremendous loss, and I thought it just had to be hard. I really felt that way at a time, which is another reason why play is so important to me because I realized, no, it doesn't have to be. It was only that because you kept that narrative going. So your wish is our command, right? If you think it has to be this way, then so shall it be. And then you get to a point where you realize, oh, I've been making this thing harder than it had to be. So for me, it's about deservedness and realizing that the best of life does not have to be so hard. Does it require effort and work? Yes. However, it doesn't have to come at the expense of your joy, of your creativity, of your sense of self knowing and self worth. That's one. I'm grateful for the resilience of my ancestors. And because of them, because of their resilience, because of their sacrifice, because of all that they did not experience in life, because of them, I can play more freely. Because of them, I can travel. I realized I travel for my great grandmother. I travel for my grandmother, my grandfather, who, they didn't get that opportunity. And I'm also traveling for people in my family who are here at this time who still don't see that as a possibility for them, right?
Hmm.
So that's another thing. So the second cycle that piggybacks off of the first one is possibility, seeing the possibilities in this life, knowing that truly, if I see it and feel it and really believe it, that it shall come to pass because I said so. And so the new cycle is my relationship with my word, because the word is how we create. It is the tool of creation. And what I say goes if I truly believe it and if I truly align myself vibrationally and energetically to what I'm saying, it will come to pass because I said so. So again, being in greater integrity and honoring of the word, because that is how we manifest in life, which is also a part of play. I have that woven into the experience, the play manifesto as well. And then let me see if there's a third one. A new cycle of financial reverence and reciprocity, realizing again that it doesn't have to be so hard. And I think you get to that place of knowing that it doesn't have to be so hard when you start to remember more of who you are and that there isn't this big separation from us in spirit or us and God or us in the cosmos, however you refer to that beautiful presence that animates all things. When you realize that it's a lot closer to us than we think, you start moving through life differently and you start claiming things from that space of knowing that I am a daughter of, I am a child of, I am an expression of the creator. So all that the creator has is mine to the degree of which I believe. So that's a little bit of what this new cycle that I am really intentionally working on as far as shifting in my bloodline, because, I realize we have the talent, We have the skills, we have the gift. We're not identifying ourselves properly, and that's where we fall short. So, yeah.
Just a little bit of what you're working on in this lifetime.
No, just a little bit. It's not much.
Sis, you are a beautiful soul. You are a powerful teacher, guide, space holder that is so clear to me. And that is why I invited you to teach in my membership. So I'm just so excited and grateful that this experience is going to be happening on July 29th. Again, everyone, if you want to participate in the play Manifesto with DeAnna and the members of the Cosmic Awakening Circle, go to the link that I will put in the description below. If you're already a member of the Cosmic Awakening Circle, this workshop is included. You can show up live or get the recording that's going to be part of our growing resource library that I think has almost 40 workshops in it. So that's for members. If you want to attend and not become a member, that's fine, but you do have to attend live and you will not get access to the recording. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to people. And it's $30 for non-members and it's included for the members. So again, all of that information will be on the landing page for the workshop. And DeAnna, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah, so grateful for you. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate you. I am grateful for you. And thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this very necessary platform community. And I'm really grateful for all the ways that you are making an imprint and helping us to see ourselves beyond what we have allowed ourselves to see ourselves up until this point. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for saying yes to the calling on your heart. And thank you for being a priestess of play as well in your
Thank
own
you.
domain in a way. So thank you.
I received that. I received
Yes.
that. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye, Deanna. Thank you.
Thank you.